The Metropolitan Police are at it again, promoting themselves in the hope that they can get the public back on side whilst actually making it harder for the majority of the public to respect them. The latest self-promotion of the Metropolitan Police is a piece in the Evening Standard discussing how inclusive they are and welcoming to people from different backgrounds, while highlighting two stories from two serving gay police constables and how their experiences are helping to build a more inclusive Met. Well, in fact, one's gay and one of them is a female to male trans person. So, a man and a woman, ultimately, but gay. Now, as we know, London is probably one of the most diverse places anywhere. And with that in mind, the Metropolitan Police Force thinks that by dragging people from these diverse communities into the force, it will help with their image and make them look more inclusive and diverse, whilst completely overlooking the main point of the police force. It's not about what you look like on the outside, it's about what's going on the inside. We all know you cannot polish a turd, and with the Met's plan to recruit more innies, outies, in-betweeners, blacks, Asians, Sikhs and Muslims and women by lowering the standards of the police force to make it easier for those kinds of people to apply and to pass recruitment processes, I think we're going to end up with a police force that is actually more heterophobic, more racist and more sexist than we have now. Some people call them institutionally racist, sexist, homophobic, etc. But I don't necessarily believe that that is true. In order to be any of those things, a person or organisation must have a genuine dislike of or prejudice towards one of those groups. And although I'm not gay, black, Muslim or a woman, no, definitely not a woman, I rarely see any real indication that that is the case. And when I say rarely, I mean we have heard recently about Charing Cross, Nick, and the disgusting messages that they've sent each other in private WhatsApp groups. But even these reports of WhatsApp groups are relatively rare. Sickening, yes, but relatively rare considering the amount of reports that I put out on here and the amount of stories I see. So it happens. But so far, it's smaller pockets of police who are engaged in these groups than there's no actual evidence to suggest it's running through the entire Metropolitan Police. Now, there isn't any evidence to say it isn't going on either, but we have to go on what's evidenced. We see far more unacceptable behaviour from police than these WhatsApp groups, and simply being stopped by a white police constable when you yourself are black does not make it racist, nor does it make it homophobic if you are gay and stopped by a straight cop. It simply means that it's likely just a cop who's got nothing better to do, seen somebody in an area that they know they can abuse the high crime area line or lots of drug dealers around here line, and picked on you for that reason. I mean, think back to the Chelsea Bridge incident when the guy got tasered and jumped the side of the bridge to his death. It was a black copper who tasered a black man. Not a peep from Black Lives Matter. But had it been the white cop who did it, oh boy, we'd have another George Floyd incident on our hands. Now don't get me wrong, there are always going to be people with ideas about these groups that are not quite right and are discriminatory. Unfortunately, that will never change, and we will get it and always get it in every walk of life, even within these groups themselves. So what's going to happen if we end up with a police force made up of mainly women, innies, outies and in-betweeners, blacks and Muslims? The chances are some of the women will have radical feminist ideas and discriminate against men. Some of the alphabetic folk will have discriminatory views against heterosexuals. Some of the blacks will have discriminatory views about whites and our white privilege. And some of the Muslims will simply be discriminatory towards their LGBT colleagues and the rest of us infidels. So how does this create a less discriminatory police service? It really doesn't, and is all for show. It's all about the police force's PR department having been on some common purpose training, trying to show how wonderful they are to the minority groups, whilst completely overlooking their main priority, which is to police without fear or favour, to protect people and property, prevent crime and investigate crime. Nowhere does it say anything about picking sides. This entire woke boulevard the police seem to be marching down is completely out of line with policing principles. We already know that recruitment into the police is now easier than it ever was, meaning that all sorts of people who are not fit to be police are joining. And when I say not fit, I don't just mean their morals and views, but their level of intelligence, their level of physical ability is all lower now than it has ever been. And this is having a knock-on effect to the way that police. People being promoted because they are the station's token gay or token black person, rather than the fact they can do the job properly, is and has destroyed policing from its basic form. If police returns to their basic function, if they returns to recruiting people based on their ability to do the job rather than the ability to make the force look good, the ability to deal with a situation without immediately going for their tasers and batons and asking questions later, the ability to deal with a person who's struggling without killing them, rather than having some people to attend and represent the force at the next Pride event or take a knee at the next BLM rally, then we might be able to not only reduce crime but also solve some of the crimes, especially some of the ones the police are nowadays all too keen on not even attending.